A lot of people think that advances in science occur intentionally. While sometimes that is true, we're going to take a look here at several examples of how they occurred accidentally and what we have from those happy little accidents today. The first historical figure we're going to look at is Sir Alexander Fleming. Sir Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin back in 1928. He was often described as a careless lab technician, leaving a mess, not cleaning up his experiments, etc. As many great minds exist in a similar fashion, this organized chaos led way to the great breakthrough of penicillin. He was doing some research on influenza strains and left for a 2-week vacation. When he returned, he found one of his petri dishes had mold starting to grow on it. Upon further examination, he noticed that the bacteria within the petri dish was not going near the mold. He wondered why this was, and through further research led to his discovery of penicillin. The next short story is that of Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen. He's the first person to ever win the Nobel Prize for Physics. Back in 1895, he was doing experiments in his labs with cathode ray tubes. He had various materials in his room, and he noticed that something was glowing when the cathode ray tube was on. He tried to block these rays with paper and wood, but they would still keep going through those materials. Finally, he held up a lead disc, and the final image, he was able to see a shadow where the lead disc and the bones in his hands were. He didn't know what these rays were called, so he simply labeled them X. That is how we have X-rays today. The basis for vaccinations was first discovered in 1796 by Edward Jenner, a British scientist and surgeon. A young milkmaid had told him how people who had contracted cowpox, a harmless disease easily picked up during contact with cows, never got smallpox, the deadly disease. With this in mind, Jenner took samples of the open cowpox sores on the hands of the milkmaid named Sarah Nelmis and inoculated an 8-year-old boy, James Pips, with the pus he had extracted from Nelm's sores. A few months later, Jenner gave the boy another injection, this one containing smallpox, and James failed to develop the disease. Thus, the modern vaccination was born. Although the biological basis of immunity would not be understood for at least 50 years. Science is not always an intentional endeavor. Sometimes it happens quite by accident. These 3 historical stories hopefully illustrated that point to you. Alexander Fleming never intended to discover penicillin. He was studying influenza. Wilhelm Röntgen never intended to discover the X-ray. He was studying cathode ray tubes. And Edward Jenner never intended to discover vaccination. He simply thought of something that was curious with the smallpox and the correlation with the milkmaid. I hope you take this into consideration during your study of science and realize that even the most mundane experiences can lead to great advancement.